Welcome back to Face the Nation. We're joined now by Brian Deese. He is the director of President Biden's National Economic Council. Good morning and welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
You have an incredible challenge on your hands. Yes, the jobless rate is low, but wage growth not keeping pace with inflation. What do you say to Americans who are thinking that they might need a second job to pay their bills?
Well, it is an uncertain moment, and we face real challenges, global challenges. Inflation is a global challenge, 9% in the UK, over 8% in Europe. But we also have real strengths here at home. And so what I would say is we need to navigate through this transition in a way that gets us to stable growth without giving up all of the incredible economic gains that we've made. You mentioned the jobless rate at 3.6%. We've also seen household balance sheets strengthened over the course of this period.
Congressional Budget Office predicts that high inflation will persist until 2024. The Treasury Secretary has said it will stay higher than the originally forecast 4.7%. When does it come down? How much time are you talking about?
Well, prices are unacceptably high right now, and that's why the president has said we need to make this our top economic focus and do everything that we can to get them down. Most independent forecasters, the blue chip, the Federal Reserve, as you say, see inflation beginning to moderate over the course of this year. But our focus is on what are the steps, what are the policies that we can take. And the single most impactful thing that we could do right now is to work with Congress to pass legislation that would lower the costs of things that families are facing right now, like prescription drugs. We could lower the cost of prescription drugs by allowing Medicare to negotiate better prices. That would actually lower federal spending, and it would lower the cost that people pay.
The president said this week in a rare interview that he actually has the votes to do it. Where's the deal? When's the vote?
Well, lowering prescription drug costs is one piece. Lowering utility costs by providing tax incentives for energy is another piece. But equally important, lowering the federal deficit by enacting long overdue tax reform. If we can do a package like that, we can move forward in the near future. It will not only help in lowering prices, but it will send a signal to the markets and the global economy that the United States is really deadly serious about taking on this inflation.
Hiking taxes isn't going to change the price of milk. When and how are you actually putting forward this package?
The package has been debated. It's been worked through.
It failed back when Build Back Better's version of it. So if inflation is the number one priority right now, when are you scheduling a vote to do the things you just laid out?
We're working very closely with congressional leadership, with Senate leadership on that. Senator Schumer is working with his caucus to try to get a final package in place, and we're hopeful that we'll see progress on that in the coming weeks.
So in the coming weeks, you think you can get this done on a party line vote before September?
We're hopeful we can move forward on that and other priorities in Congress as well. There's a bill on semiconductors, which I know you've talked about on this program, computer chips. The lack of affordable and available computer chips has driven up prices across the economy, including in things like automobiles. We're hopeful that we can move that as well before the August recess. That would provide some real relief to the economy as well.
Despite all of what you laid out, and I know the president said recession is not inevitable, it seems increasingly probable. The Conference Board put out their survey this week. It shows 8 out of 10 global CEOs now expect a recession within the next 12 to 18 months. So what power does the president have to stop that kind of contraction?
Well, I think where we are in the economy right now is in a transition. And I spoke to CEOs over the course of the past week from sectors across the economy, and they're figuring out how to navigate this transition. Some of this is exactly what we need to see.
They're planning around a recession.
Well, they're planning around transitions in our economy. People are buying less goods, spending time at home. They're spending more on services. That creates some real challenges for some companies and some CEOs. What I would say is that not only is a recession not inevitable, but I think that a lot of people are underestimating those strengths and the resilience of the American economy.
But shouldn't you level with the American public and just say we are in uncharted waters? I mean, even the Federal Reserve Chair said this week there are things beyond his control. He can't control the price of gasoline. He can't control the war in Europe. He can't control COVID. He has a limited set of tools, and so do you. Is the president powerless here?
Absolutely not. Look, we face unprecedented global circumstances, a global pandemic and a war in Europe that is affecting the global economy. But at the same time, we have a strategy that will make a difference. The legislation that we were talking about, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, lowering the cost of energy, lowering the federal deficit, that would make a real difference.
And you have all 50 Democrats on board for that? Because you didn't last time you tried parts of this bill.
Look, nothing is done until it's done. We're hopeful. We're working hard. We got our head down, and we're going to try to get something done.
So a number of economists, I want to put up a chart of inflation here for our audience to see, measured by the Consumer Price Index. So from the beginning of the pandemic through now, and as you can see, the tick up began a good year before the war in Ukraine began. A number of economists, including at the San Francisco Fed, have said that the tremendous fiscal spending that went underway, the $6 trillion in 2 years, did add to that, including, as you can see right on there, the $2 trillion that the Biden administration pushed through in the spring of 2021. So when people look at that and they say, well, the White House told us that inflation would be transitory. The White House told us we could go through with this kind of spending and we'd be fine, even when Democrats within your own party were warning this would add to inflation. How do you win credibility here to the public and say this time we're not wrong?
Well, you just have to look around the world today to recognize that the two principal drivers of inflation are the pandemic and Putin. We're seeing this everywhere. It is a global phenomenon. As I mentioned, in the UK, inflation's hit 9%.
Right.
In
but
Europe,
the point
it's
is,
hit
those
over.
are the things you can't control. I'm talking about the things you can.
Absolutely.
So how do you win that credibility back?
Well, if we look at the things that we can control, we win credibility by taking action. This president is acting. This president galvanized the global community to do a historic release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 1 million barrels a day. Leading oil market analysts this week said that action was single-handedly responsible for keeping oil prices from going up even further.
Right,
we are going to take action. We're going to prioritize. We're going to make clear that tackling inflation is our top economic priority.
One of the things that you do have control over at the executive is the approach on tariffs. Treasury Secretary Yellen told me back in November, she acknowledged that the Trump-era China tariffs do add to inflation domestically here. The president was asked about this yesterday and said, we are still in the process of making up my mind. If inflation is the number one priority, why are you dragging out this decision?
Well, I'll let the president's word speak for himself. We're looking closely at it, and I anticipate the president will have more to say on that issue in the coming weeks. But just to be very clear, over the course of the last couple of months, this is an issue about our supply chains and about getting goods to the United States in a way that is effective and cheap. And the president has been incredibly focused on that.
Well, we will continue to track it. Thank you very much, Brian Deese, for coming in.
Thank you.